Okay. We will start with the introduction of board members. Clarence, if you could go.
I'm Clarence Campbell. Been on this board for 20 some years. I can't remember how long.
Can you guys remember to use your mics?
Press your mic button. Joe.
Joe Keller, retired family doctor. I've been on the board, I think, 12 some years. No applause, that's all.
My name is George Bousset. I'm new to this board, new to the county board, and happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm Rich Huber, and this is my second term on the board and the first time for Health and Human Services. Glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Matt McKenzie, and I've been on the county board now for 20 years, representing ward number 2 in the city of Ashland up here. I've been on Health and Human Services now. I'm not even sure how long it's been, but maybe about 10 years, maybe give or take a few. Thank you.
Either Laura next.
I'm Laura Negro. I've been on the county board since 2019 and on Health and Human Services that long too.
I'm the other Laura, and I have been on the Health and Human Service Board for, I don't know how many years, 7, 8, 9. And I think you're stuck with me for a while.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Got Matt yet? Matt. Morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dr. Horning, sorry.
Hey, everybody, Matt Horning. I've been on the board about 6 years, family doctor here in Ashland.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Okay, thank you. We will begin with the election for chair, and we can start with nominations. If anybody has anyone to nominate.
I nominate Clarence. This is Laura Cruz.
It's George Bousset. I'll second that nomination.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay. Do we have to vote?
This is Matt McKenzie. I'll move that we close nomination for chair and that we cast unanimous vote for Clarence as our chair.
It's George Bousset. I'll second.
Yay. And with that, I'm passing it back to Clarence.
Okay, we'll now take nominations for vice chair.
I think we need to vote yet, actually.
Oh, yeah. You got to call for the board first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor for Clarence and for a unified vote on this? Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay.
Okay, now we'll take nominations for vice chair.
George Bousset. I nominate Laura Negro.
Any other
Laura.
nominations?
Laura Cruz, I second that motion.
Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for vice chair?
This is McKenzie again, and I'd make a motion. We close nominations for vice chair and cast unanimous vote for Laura for vice chair.
George Bousset.
Laura.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to cast a unanimous ballot for Laura Negro as vice chair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, guys.
Next item is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which was a while ago.
Move to approve, Matt Horning.
Laura Cruz, I second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections that anyone noticed? Otherwise, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We now move on to public comments. Anyone either online or, I don't think there's anyone in the chambers here, but anyone online? Oh, okay, go ahead. Hit the one in the middle, yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kelly Madey. I am the child support administrator for Ashland County, but I'm also a resident of Ashland County. And I'm speaking to you all tonight because if you haven't seen me in the community yet, I am someone who doesn't sit back and say nothing when I know something is wrong or something isn't right. Yesterday, there was an executive meeting here at the courthouse. One of the agenda items was regarding the Director of Public Safety Communications. If you didn't see that, it was from Brian Zupke, the Chief Deputy, and he was requesting that the position, which is $23.38 an hour salaried, he had it posted from May 26th to June 1st and received a comment from a dispatcher that it should not be a salaried position, even though it has always been. He asked the executive committee to make this a hourly position rather than salaried so that this person could receive overtime to do the job. That's always been a salaried position. The executive committee voted unanimously to allow this salaried position to become hourly in order for the person hired to receive overtime effective immediately. I understand Mr. Zupke's frustration and his request. However, I disagree with the decision to grant the request. We have many salaried positions within the county, my position being one of them. I've been in my position as child support administrator for 3 years. During those 3 years, due to retirements and openings in Bayfield County, we've lost and had to train in 5 new workers, and child support is not alone in this. The clerk of court's office, the children's unit, adult unit, etc., have all been short-staffed. And let's not forget the public health who worked endless hours as a salaried person during this COVID outbreak. The person to pick up the slack for all of these and take care of everything is the administrator, the director, or the salaried person. 1, because we've been told there's no money to pay anyone overtime. 2, if that unit or office does not run efficiently, it falls on that person's shoulders. It falls on my shoulders, Liz's shoulders, Pete's shoulders, Melanie's shoulders, and Val and every other salaried person. There's not one salaried person in this county that does not put in 50+ hours on a regular basis and then sit on our laptops at home after we put our kids to bed and work for another hour. I do believe that maybe you should have increased the salary for this person, but it should not have been made an hourly position. By making that person an hourly position is telling every other salaried person in this county that there is money, but just not for us. And going above and beyond for Ashland County will get you nowhere. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move on to the public hearing for the calendar year 2023 budget development. I'll need a motion to go into public hearing.
This
Laura
is Huber.
Cruz, I so move.
Okay, Laura and Rich kind of made the motion at the same time, so.
I'll second.
Okay,
Laura
Rich,
Cruz, I'll second.
motion by Rich and seconded by Laura Cruz. I believe this is a roll call vote, if I'm not mistaken.
George Bousset. Clarence Campbell,
Yes?
Richard Huber,
Yes.
Matt McKenzie, Laura Negro,
Yes.
Dr. Horning,
Yes.
Dr. Keller, Laura Cruz.
Yes.
Anyone wishing to make comments regarding the development of our budget for next year? And that's members of the public or otherwise, if there are no one wishing to make comments, we will recess the public hearing. And then if anyone should appear after that, we will reconvene the public hearing, but then we'll go on with regular business. I think we need a motion to recess.
This is Laura Negro. I'll make the motion to recess the public hearing.
This is Laura Cruz. I second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to recess the public hearing for the time being.
George Busse,
Aye.
Clarence Campbell,
Yes,
Richard Huber,
Yes,
Matt McKenzie, Laura Negro,
Yes.
Dr. Horning,
Yes.
Dr. Keller, Laura Cruz.
Yes.
all right, we'll move on to the Ashland County Health and Human Services Annual Report.
For those of you who have not received one, they're on the table in the middle, if you'd like to get one. Otherwise, if you've had, they were emailed out, if you've had a chance to review them. I just want to say what a great job all of the departments did on their annual report. You will see many, many accomplishments within this report, and you will also see many struggles, but what creative ways were come up to handle the struggles. As you all know, it's been a very rough last 2.5 years, and our staff has done exceptionally well, and it is shown in this report. So we will just kind of go through it. Each department will just spend a minute or two highlighting what they feel is some of the most important things they'd like to highlight for you. And we'll start with adult services, and Tasha is joining us by Zoom.
One second. Okay. So in the adult services, the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program, or CLTS, continues to see increased enrollments. Currently, we are serving 43 children. In 2021, we had 42 children compared to 26 in 2020. In part, this increase is due to the elimination of the wait list by the state of Wisconsin. Due to the increase in enrollments, we shifted a worker from CCS to CLTS, CST, and CCOP. This allows the workers to work more closely to identify both the children's and the family's needs and coordinate services, all those types of things. And then the number of adult emergency detentions continues to rise. We also continue to see an increase in the number of these EDs that are dismissed due to not meeting probable cause. Oftentimes, these are situational crises or isolated incidents that improve after the person has time to talk through the situation. In 2020, there were 61 adult EDs, with 24 being dismissed. In 2021, that number increased to 74 EDs, with 28 being dismissed. Up to this point in 2022, we have seen 36 EDs and 22 of them have been dismissed. We are exploring ways we can work with law enforcement and Northland Counseling on options to prevent the EDs that are not meeting the probable cause from being initiated in the first place. This would then decrease the cost of worker time for our social workers and law enforcement, as well as eliminate high cost placements and transportation costs.
Thank you, Tasha. Any questions for Tasha? Next, we'll move to Kelly and child support.
All right, so I'm Kelly and I will talk about child support. Just kind of to keep it short and sweet, we did have a lot of the same challenges in 2021 that we had in 2020, basically due to COVID. The jail was still operating under COVID protocol and still, I believe, are operating under COVID protocol. So they don't pick many people up on our child support warrants, which makes it really hard for us to run our program effectively and efficiently. We had kids that were at home and school closed down, parents working remotely, but everyone did it and we did well. If you look at the court order establishment rate and our performance measures, we maintained or went up in all areas. So I'm extremely proud of our staff for doing that. They worked extremely hard to make do with the fact that we couldn't utilize the jail and the court system like we have, and we still continue to struggle now with that. But they're doing a great job. We brought in just under $9 million into Ashland County, into the homes of the families in Ashland County. We still struggle with low paying jobs, families living below the poverty level, drug addiction, and many children placed out of their families' homes, within which those cases then come to us. But with all that, our office did either maintain or go up in their performance. So I would say they did an excellent job. Thank you.
Any questions for Kelly?
This is Laura Cruz. I have a question. So when you said that, $9 million came into the county, so is that like people outside of the county and money's coming in, or including the county?
It's including the county. So some of the payers do live in Ashland County, some live outside of the county, but just under 8,898,000 went into Ashland County homes of children in Ashland County.
Any other questions for Kelly? All right, then next, Jerry in the children's unit.
Hi, I'm Jerry Esla, the supervisor of the Children and Families Unit. We, as Kelly said, had much the same challenges in 2021 that we had in 2020. We did get a new supervisor this past year. I started in March, and it has been a fairly steep learning curve for me as I've taken on this new role after 30 years as an online and a line worker. But we were very busy this past year. If you, in the report that I submitted, we had 266 reports of child abuse and neglect, and there's a breakdown there in terms of what those numbers look like. We did have a drop in juvenile court referrals last year. However, what we had noticed in our juvenile court referrals is we are getting more and more serious offenses. As some of you may have noted in some recent newspaper articles. So we only had 67 juvenile court referrals last year, which is a good drop for us. However, 39 of those cases were petitioned to the juvenile court, which is a very high percentage of our referrals being petitioned in juvenile court. Some interesting things that I came up with as I was putting together my report, one of which is I found some numbers having to do with per capita initial assessments. Initial assessments are what we used to call child abuse and neglect investigations. I found that Ashland County per 10,000 population in 2021 did 53 initial assessments. And what's interesting about that is when you look at the surrounding counties, we are significantly more busy than the counties around us. I noted that Bayfield County had only 28 initial assessments per 10,000 population. Sawyer County had 40, This County only 21, and Iron County had 42. So my 7 workers are extremely busy at doing what they do, and they do it very, very well. The other really interesting statistics that I came across had to do with juvenile court referrals, and I focused a little bit more on kind of a year-to-date juvenile court referrals for this year, as we are on pace right now to double the amount of juvenile court referrals that we had last year. The interesting thing that I found in the numbers, actually going all the way back to 2019, is that we're seeing a significant change in where those referrals are coming from, where the criminal acts that the juveniles are committing. So back in 2019, we had, for the entire year, we had 71 juvenile court referrals that pertain to criminal acts that took place out in the community, and only 3 juvenile court referrals that took place in the school setting. In 2020, those numbers went to 50 juvenile court referrals that occurred due to criminal acts in the community and 11 in the school setting. In 2021, they were almost identical at 32 in the community and 31 in the school setting. And year to date this year, we have had 36 criminal acts in the school setting and only 16 in the community. So as I look at those numbers, they are completely crisscrossing as we go forward in time. So our juvenile court referrals out in the community are dropping significantly while we're having more and more criminal acts that are taking place in schools. And a lot of those criminal acts we're finding are very serious acts involving weapons and other violent offenses. So anecdotally, there's no empirical data having to do with this, but anecdotally, I think that what this shows is that our Spark program with the BFI grant that Scott Griffiths runs is having a significant impact in our community. The Spark program took off late in 2018, when we saw these huge numbers of referrals out in the community, and they have dropped steadily for the past 4 years as those school incidences have increased. So just a really interesting statistical thing that I found as I was putting things together. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on that. Is it isolated to a specific school district, or is it evenly distributed across the county?
I didn't actually apply any kind of math to that, Matt. But I think that, we obviously get the vast majority of our referrals from the Ashland School District because it's the largest district. But not having actually looked at that, I would have to say that our referrals from the schools in the southern part of the county have not changed significantly over time, I don't believe.
Okay. Have you shared that with the school districts?
I actually shared it with Chief Hagstrom, and he and I were having discussions about that. I have not talked to the school district about it.
Okay, thank you.
This is Laura Negro. What kinds, okay, you said weapons charges and such, but do you have these broken into categories? And is there data with age, racial breakdown, et cetera, of the children that are being charged with these crimes?
I do not have that with me. However, if you'd like, I can certainly get that information together for you and send that out to you. It is information I can pull out of our WSAQA system to do that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there needs to be a support system inside the school and what kind of supports they have in there. And then also if there is anything with the originating complainants, if there's certain people that are complaining more about kids, or if it's just across the board with all the different teachers and groups and such.
I guess I haven't, I can see all of those reports and see who the reporters are. In terms of complainants to law enforcement, I haven't seen any kind of trends in that at all.
Okay.
As a school, this is Laura Cruz, as a school district employee and as a teacher who works with students at risk, I'm very interested in that data, Jerry, and I think we have a wonderful opportunity with a new superintendent who's coming in. And I would hope that you could get on his calendar, and I can certainly let him know that he needs to contact you, but I think it would be nice if you reached out to him and welcome him to the community, as well as, you know, our concerns about this increase and how we as the Ashland County and the school district can start addressing some of these things. I mean, we have through ESSER funding, which is from the COVID, we hired another school psychologist, I believe, and a social worker, which we hadn't had. And we have Greta Belancarte from who continues the AWARE stuff, connecting students to therapists, and having therapists actually come into the school. So more wraparound and really trying to have students not miss classes. But the data that I'm seeing with grades and attendance, I believe that, and over the years, you know, the increase in AODA, and the trauma, the tragedy, I think that information, I believe that we're in a crisis. And I don't believe that community members, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm not speaking as an employee for the school district of Ashland. Let me just clarify that. I'm speaking as Laura Cruz, who's on this board and knows stuff. And I see a lot of people either who are not knowledgeable about the things that happen in our communities. And the things that happen to kids, I mean, I have made people who don't cry. And I've done that with administrators so they understand what our children go through. And somehow we all need to work together to figure out. And I applaud Scott with the Spark program, and you know, because I think things would be a lot worse, a whole lot worse. But it's been, yeah. So I just felt like I had to say that, especially as I'm retiring at the end of summer school.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Val with Community Services Program.
All right, good evening. So Ashland County has 3 psychosocial rehabilitation programs that are certified by the state. In February of this last year, we applied for and were certified for, they all are the C's, CRS, or Community Recovery Services, which is another program to provide services within the community. We had 1 person in that program this year. In our CSP, Community Support Program, I'll talk more about that later because we have the quality assurance report for 2021 we'll go through. So I'll talk right now mainly about CCS, or Comprehensive Community Services. So this is same as Kelly and Jerry. We learned a lot from 2020 about how to provide services to people with mental illness and substance use disorders across the lifespan in the community and homes of people who were quarantined, who were isolated, and who had a variety of reactions to the pandemic. And so the state and the federal government coming forward with temporary telehealth has been hugely helpful, except that only about 25% of our folks have access to something like Zoom. But with temporary telehealth, we're able to also use the phone to provide services if it's efficient and effective. The other thing that we were spending a lot of time was after we would do our telehealth, we would still have to get the physical signatures the state and the federal government required. And so then we were still going to people's homes and that type of thing. And now we have Adobe Pro, which we can send them an email and they can sign electronically. I think that one of the biggest things besides the pandemic in this past year is that when 2020 came, the pandemic came, by July, August of that year, we had lost all of our contractor providers providing the home and community services. We started to build that back up, and with turnover and that such thing, it's just been a sliding slope, and we continue to experience that in 2022 as well. And a lot of times what was happening is that the vendors we had contracted with were advertising, but we're not getting qualified applicants. We even had it's just happened now in 2022 where a vendor has decided they're going to take a timeout because they literally have no staff and have no qualified applicants after 3 months of advertising. We internally had the same issues. We had staff leave because of advancement and because of retirement, and et cetera. And we had the same experience with lack of applicants when we advertised. So what we did is we went from requiring a bachelor's level for education to an associate's level of education. And then we were able to find an applicant that was appropriate. At CCS, we did serve 132 people in 2021, 18 were children, and we had 81 admissions and 86 discharges. So pretty much, I think that's pretty much it for the annual report.
Any questions for Val?
Just one question. What does MHP stand for?
That's a mental health professional. So by state statutes, that person has to be a person with a master's degree and a license with over 2 years experience. So they are in charge of the clinical integrity of the program.
Val, this is Laura Cruz. I'm wondering, given that people can go to McDonald's or Walmart or wherever and get $15 an hour, are you finding that the rate of pay is part of the issue in getting qualified people?
Yes, I believe that's part of it. And I think the other part of it is in the middle of a pandemic, are you wanting to go into people's homes and provide services? So I think I do think there are people who would do it if it seemed worthwhile. And this isn't an issue specific to Ashland County. It is an issue throughout the state. And what I am seeing is that the rates in which other CCS programs are having to pay more for the same services. because of having to increase wages.
Okay. Next, we have Melanie with economic support.
Good evening, everyone. In economic support, we determine food share, Medicaid, long-term care services, which is nursing home care, family care, child care, caretaker supplement, and then the WEAP program. So I'm just going to speak briefly on the WEAP program in 2021. We had actually access to the CARES funding for 2021 so our customers, our WEAP eligible customers really benefited from that. So comparison, for 2021, the crisis allotment that our community members that were eligible for WEAP received were 435,573. Comparison to back to 2019, when we did not have any of that kind of funding, our people, so the difference between 2021 and 2019, we actually they pooled the funds available for crisis, whereas in 2019, the state issued separate allotments to each county. And so our allotment was $23,918. So that's a huge significant increase for our customers for the crisis benefit. That is not the regular benefit. Crisis means that they had excess bills, that they were looking at arrearages on their bills. So what happened in 2021, the state of Wisconsin worked with Excel in our area. And so any member or any eligible WEAP customer who had an arrearage, they actually paid that bill directly during certain times during the year. So there was at least 3 issuance during 2021. And then as an agency, we worked with the bulk fuel customers. So we worked with vendors like Midland, Feral Gas, Rusk Oil. And so we would issue benefits to those accounts, making sure that they're still using those accounts and still had that vendor. So the ARPA and the CARES funding had a significant impact on our customers, for our WEAP customers for crisis. And it was almost a 95% increase. So we had a good benefit for our citizens of Ashland County. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Melanie. Pete, did you want to say anything? Okay. And then last but not least, Liz with public health.
So 2021 was another fun-filled and exciting year for public health. And I apologize for the length of our annual report. It's over 20 pages, the public health section is. So I picked out just a couple of highlights because it is so lengthy. So one of the things just to call attention to is our community health needs assessment was completed over the summer of 2021. This was done in continued partnership with Bayfield and Iron counties, as well as Memorial Medical Center. The community health needs assessment again identified our priority areas to be mental health concerns, as well as substance use and substance abuse. This has been a consistent finding for the past several Chip and Chaw cycles. So our new community health improvement plan, we are trying to focus on collaboration, awareness, and already established activities to try and build on existing programs and enhance their performance and the reach of our already established programs. So rather than trying to initiate any new initiatives, we're trying to go with our already existing wheels and just try to make them more impactful. We did have a large focus on immunizations throughout 2021. One of these included the provision of 7,349 COVID-19 vaccinations. In addition, we continue to offer the annual flu vaccines, predominantly through drive-through clinics to the public, as well as in all of the schools throughout the county. This year, we were also able to offer all of the routine childhood vaccinations in the on-site school clinics. This was in an effort to improve the childhood vaccination rates, as many people missed or opted out of their routine well child visits early on in the pandemic. So we did see a drop in the rates of routine childhood vaccinations. So vaccines that were offered in the schools included the Tdap or the tetanus, diphtheria, polio. Polio was included as well. The hepatitis A and B, HPV series, the MMR, Menactra or meningococcal, and also the chickenpox or varicella vaccine. We've continued with a fully funded Title X clinic, which we offer STI screening, treatment, and then various family planning options. We also participate with supplemental GYT or Get Yourself Tested and expedited partner therapy programs. Ashland County has had increasing STI rates, which are the same experience throughout the nation. In particular for Ashland County, we have been noticing increasing chlamydia and hepatitis C rates. So in 2021, we implemented additional community interventions with condom distribution programs. In cooperation with local businesses who were interested in this, we have installed a total of 18 free condom dispensers that include educational displays and contact information for public health. Various businesses and locations include bars, restaurants, and gas stations throughout the county. So anywhere from Clam Lake to Butternut to right here in Ashland. In total, throughout the year, there were 1,850 condoms distributed through these dispensers. So we are optimistic that we will see a decrease in some of our STI rates for this coming year. And then in the fall of 2021, we began the groundwork for the formation and development of an overdose fatality review team. The OFR is a partnership between DHS and DOJ for a multidisciplinary process for understanding the risk factors and circumstances leading to fatal overdoses and identifying opportunities to prevent future overdoses. So we've actually had our initial training for the team, and we've had, so that's in 2022, we've had the team training, and we've actually had some additional community members from various organizations. They found out about the team and requested to be members of it. So we're still in an ongoing onboarding process and working on getting some interventions in place in preparation for an upcoming review. So, any questions? Like I said, I did some very brief highlights on things because it's a lengthy report.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll move on now. And now Pete gets his chance. End of year expenditures.
I'm Pete Hurley. I'm the financial manager for Human Services. The reason these guys were snickering and giving me a hard time because whenever we have a managers meeting or a full agency meeting, I usually have about 30 seconds of things to say. So I don't have that much to say. The 2020 end of year expenditures, we typically go over this in our April meeting, which we did not have. So the exhibit I'm looking at, you've got two that look similar. One is for 2021 final. The other one is for 2022 year to date, which we'll go over later. But it looks like this, if you can see this document. And at the top, it says 2021 final HHS revenue and expense analysis. The bottom line here, what we're most concerned about is the levy budget and how Human Services performed against that. In that very top box, there's a line that says levy. The budget was about $2.2 million in county levy, taxpayer dollars. We ended up spending about 1.65 of that. That is heavily, so that's savings of a little over 500,000. That is 100% due to COVID dollars. If we had not had the COVID dollars, it's a little bit squirrely. It's not as straightforward as one might think. But I would estimate that we would be, slightly over our levy budget, maybe within 5%, but we probably would have been slightly over. So that's that's kind of that in a nutshell. The things that I talk about all the time that you guys get tired of hearing about maybe is just the biggest wild card with our expenses are court-ordered out-of-home placements, and that continues to be true. But that's just something we need to continue to deal with. Does anyone have questions about this specifically? And I'll put it out there again, like I always do, which is if anybody wants to get into the nitty gritty of any of this stuff, I'm happy to do that with any of you. If you want to give me a call sometime and you want to stop by, we can get our hands dirty with it.
Anyone have any questions for Pete? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Spark program, and Scott, I think, is online.
Hello, everyone. I've just given you an update based on our last meeting. Is everyone able to hear me all right?
Yep.
Hello? Okay. So you should have received a new copy of the risk management policy. I spent some time working on this both with my staff, did some consulting with a risk management person from Northland College, and then have run all these subsequent additions and changes past Dan. And I believe we have now have in front of us a good updates to the risk management policy. The additions and any changes are things that you see highlighted in yellow. Everything else was a part of the risk management policy that was in place, but we did add some specific things for mountain biking, skateboarding, and alpine skiing, as well as the final paragraph in the risk management policy on page 11. You'll note a note regarding staff safety, and I think that this is an important component based on I think the original concerns with a number of workers' comp claims that had come in through Spark staff participating and being injured in activities. So that final paragraph is something that we're glad to have included into the risk management policy, and we've had Dan and I believe the attorney take a look at this, and we've gotten the thumbs up there. So, do you have any questions on the updated risk management policies? Okay. The other thing that I wanted to share with you today is that we are working on and considering launching a nonprofit organization similar to a friends organization that would be something that we could use as a way to support Spark program into the future, as well as taking on a couple of the projects that don't seem to fit really well under the county umbrella. We've got as we start to work with our high school kids or kids that start to get into high school, in the last 3 years, we found that we start to lose those kids. And so some of the things that we see as a really great potential opportunity to retain some of our kids as they get into that working age is some entrepreneurial opportunities. And, after some good conversations with Dan, really realized that starting small businesses within the county is just really not a great fit. And so we have been exploring the option of launching a nonprofit organization that would be able to house small entrepreneurial endeavors that we could use with our kids, and then also have the nonprofit be an area off to the side of what is happening underneath the county as a fundraising arm. So I've spoken with a number of people about being potential board members. We've started to look at drafting articles of incorporation. the three people that have agreed to be on a potential board, if we do get a nod from the committee today, would be an attorney, a public accountant, and a fundraising development specialist, and looking at just using the Spark nonprofit as a way to generate funds for projects that fall kind of outside the scope of what the grant funding will allow. So just wanted to give you a heads up. That's something that we're considering, and wanted to see if there's any concerns or questions about the development of such a nonprofit before we get into that next phase of writing up and filing the articles of incorporation, et cetera.
Scott, Matt McKenzie, yeah, I guess I got a question, like what kind of projects are you envisioning that would be that does not fit underneath the umbrella?
Well, so one for instance, so we have our indoor skate park at the facility. One of the entrepreneurial endeavors that we've looked at would be opening a little skate shop. There is the nearest skateboard shop would be in Duluth, Minnesota at this point. So one of the things that our skateboarding instructor and some of our kids have been talking about is the need for a small skateboard shop in our region. And so we would look at taking about 100 square feet or 120 square feet of our existing skate park space, and then changing the lease on our space so that the county is not leasing that. A nonprofit would lease that space and launch a small skateboard shop that could employ a couple kids, a few hours a week. So that would be one endeavor. We're looking at needing to build a kitchen in our facility. We're feeding our kids every day, and right now, like looking to do fundraising endeavors with folks. So, for instance, Pat Nimick did a memorial golf tournament in honor of his son who passed away due to an overdose, and so he's generated some funding that he wants to donate to Spark. There has been some concerns raised about writing checks directly to the county for donations that are being directed towards Spark. I have worked with Pete and Judy to look at doing a designated account that would be housed within the county. But there are folks, as they start to look at writing bigger checks and donations, that writing those into the nonprofit so that the nonprofit would be able to hold those funds and then be able to use those to support projects. So building a kitchen is something that we're starting to reach out to support for MMC, et cetera. So just projects like those as they emerge.
Yeah, I guess, well, I'll tell you right now, if it comes before this group, and it should, I would be greatly opposed to any retail operation whatsoever. That's clearly outside the scope of what I think we're trying to accomplish, and it could be in direct competition with local people if they want to set up retail shop, and that should not be a part of what we're involved in.
Okay, and I think, I think as Dan had mentioned, that isn't something that he feels that the county should be engaged in, which is why this nonprofit entity taking on an endeavor like that, it is a niche. Like that particular one is a niche that is not being filled in the community at this point. Some of these retaining high school kids, these entrepreneurial, there's a lot of entrepreneurial programs that are out in there. There's an organization called Build. They're having great success working with at-risk youth by providing them opportunities to be entrepreneurial. And that is a way that we believe that we can start to reach some of the kids that we're starting to lose touch with as they hit that age of 15, 16 years old. And so I think that's part of the need to start considering setting a nonprofit up that runs in parallel with what's happening at the county, because it would not then be a county run program.
I understand what you're suggesting, and I'll tell you, I'll listen to what you have to say, but I don't think you're going to stand much chance of getting me to change my mind on that.
Okay. Well, great. Maybe you and I can sit off to the side one of these days and have a conversation, and so I can understand your concerns a little bit better.
This is Laura Negro. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Are there not community partners or partners in the community that could take on some of these things? And that you could partner up with as Spark? Also, how would this be run? Is this something that you would be running, or that, I understand there's another board, because, you're the Spark program person for the county. Who is the executive director? What kind of setup is that?
At this point, with it, at this point, the primary focus of that would be as a fundraising arm. And so that would be there. At this point, we hadn't really discussed the need for it specifically as an executive director. It would be a small, not just a small nonprofit board. They said one of the folks is an attorney, one's a public accountant, and then the other is a fundraising specialist. And so that was the conversation that we've had thus far. There wouldn't be like a compensated executive director or anything along those lines at this point.
Okay, so again, who would be, so far, who would be running this and overseeing it beyond the 3 executive director positions? Or not executive director, but board positions, sorry.
I would certainly be somebody that would be spending time with this. That right now, I would be the only other person at this point that has involvement, unless there was a need for taking on an additional person to do something with it.
I have some concerns about that, as you are a county compensated person with duties to the program and then working on this fundraising arm. So if there's a way to address that, I would appreciate it.
Okay. Well, and I think initially when we had, there was some, I think, initial confusion regarding whether or not donations to the county were something that were a tax deductible entity. And I think that we've got that cleared up now, that we do believe that donations made to the county are tax deductible. So it's, I think hearing the concerns of you and Matt regarding that, I think that we can start to take a look at maybe perhaps just focusing the fundraising within the county. I just heard specifically from one person in the community that was looking at making a fairly sizable donation, that he was concerned about writing a check directly to the county and was asking if there was a nonprofit to go along with it, because he felt more comfortable writing a check to a nonprofit, and knowing that is where the money would be going specifically to fund the Spark program, and that would not get lost in the general fund.
So this is Laura Cruz. And so if a person writes out a check to, say, the county, specifically for Spark, is that a tax deduction? I think I'm curious about that.
It is my understanding at this point that is. We did have some confusion, I think, early on. I think Pete had suggested that the auditors had told him that it was not tax deductible. And a couple subsequent conversations, I believe that it is at this point. But like I said, that was where some of this had stemmed from, was suggesting that that there were people that were more comfortable making donations to a 501c3 that was separate. So I'm not sure if there's anyone else that's on the meeting now that can clarify that specific question as to whether or not donations made to the county that were delineated for Spark are tax deductible.
It would seem that would be a question for the IRS.
But based on when I was mayor in Ashland, or in Washburn, donations made to the city of Washburn were tax deductible. In every reading that I've been able to make in the IRS handbooks regarding that, the deduction or donations made to municipal governments are tax deductible. And so that is, again, that is part of what initiated this initiative to look at launching a nonprofit, was to clarify that and keep that clean. I think some of the concerns about money being input into the general fund, that was where some of those original concerns had come from, and that, the donations they were talking about were in the in the 5-figure realm, and they were just concerned about that money just getting lost in the general fund.
This is Laura Cruz. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to clarify that, and I do understand why people would be concerned about that, and I think that I like the idea a lot. I mean, I've been on more than several nonprofit boards, and we did grant after grant after grant, and really had no other funding source, maybe a little from the county, and then it dries up and it goes away. Now, having some kind of funding arm that can then can make the donations to the county or to do the projects. I mean, that would all have to be spelled out, obviously, but I think those are some really unique opportunities to work with UW Extension, the schools, and, to continue to have students at risk find their niche in entrepreneurial realms. And I understand some of the concerns and from the board members, and yet for me, if we can figure out how to address those concerns, I just think it would be potentially like a best practice or a pilot that is highlighted in the state. So that's a little bit of my 3 cents worth on that.
Some of the other organizations around the state that we're looking at, there's an organization called Running Rebels in Milwaukee that is a nonprofit that partners with the county, and so some of those public-private partnerships are some of the places where we see some pretty rich work happening. So, but I appreciate the feedback and the concern, and Laura and Matt, I would be interested in speaking with you both when we're not in a full meeting where you get a long agenda, to just understand your concerns a little bit better, so that we can see if it's something worth pursuing.
Scott, this Running Rebels, that's the nonprofit, and you said that cooperates with the county. Now, are the Running Rebels doing the program, or are they donating to the county because you right now are running this program as an arm of the county?
Correct.
Is this a similar setup?
No, they are a nonprofit, and I believe they collaborate with the county. It's not a county-run program. It's just another one of the organizations out there that's working with a similar demographic and similar population.
Okay.
And they're doing mentoring programs, recreational after-school programs, and diving into some of those entrepreneurial skills training and things along those lines.
Okay, because if this was something I was going to support, I would have to see a similar setup where a county had a program and then there was a nonprofit funding into that. I more data.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I do have a suggestion to that. There actually is 2 organizations, the Mushkazee Boys and Girls Club that runs underneath the Bad River Tribe, and also the LCO community or LCO Boys and Girls Club, who also runs underneath their tribe. So it's similar in a government structure, and they are run underneath their under those nonprofits are run underneath their tribal nations. And so the Muscogee Boys and Girls Club, I do have experience with that because I actually was part of the board that started that program. And so the tribe was our fiscal agent. And so we were able to run underneath the tribe, and they were our fiscal agent. And so that's how the funding came through to us. So since then, my understanding is that they were trying to put that into, now they're underneath the youth programs. I'm not sure if that has been completed or not. I haven't been in touch with that program for quite a while, but Scott, you may want to reach out to Fred Pero and the Muscogee Boys and Girls Club and see how that structure runs.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Scott? Then we'll move on to the Governor's Tour recognition plaque for public health.
So we wanted to bring this to this committee. Governor Evers sent this wonderful plaque acknowledging all the hard work that Ashland County Health and Human Services has done for promoting public health in our county and the state. And it's pretty special. It got a little warped from the rain today, but we're very, very proud of that. As well as the governor and the secretary designate Timberlake visited us a couple of weeks ago, came to Ashland and had a wonderful presentation for us at the Ashland School District, acknowledging all the hard work of all the medical providers, community health providers, counties, schools, everybody who has been part of this pandemic. So it's with a lot of pride that we received this, and we will be posting it in the public health unit. And a huge kudos to Liz and public health for all their hard work.
If you want to come up and read it, you can come up after the meeting. CSP Quality Assurance Report, Val.
I think you skipped Liz.
Sorry, public health update is next, Liz. I checked it off, but I didn't.
Oh, I could have let Val go. That's fine. Just a quick, a few updates since the last meeting. We have completed our 140 review. That was actually done on, it was May 4th because we had several Star Wars jokes going on throughout the day. So we finally did receive the results back from that. So we will be recertified as a level 2 health department. There were very few, all of 3 suggestions or areas identified for improvement. And 2 of those 3 areas were actually self-identified at the time of the review. So it went very well. Not that I want to do a 140 review again anytime soon, but it was a overall decent experience. As part of our overdose fatality review team, we have partnered with DHS, and we are, as of yesterday, we will officially be part of the Narcan Direct Distribution Program. We are the 133rd organization in the state to be part of the program. So our initial plan is to start with staff training so that we will be able to provide staff with Narcan. So if they are on a house call or responding to anything within the community and they would happen to encounter somebody experiencing an overdose, they would be able to administer Narcan. And then we will begin to we have plans to move to public distribution. So we would be a site where if somebody was looking for Narcan for themselves or family members, they would be able to come to us. We could provide them a brief training and then provide them with a supply of Narcan. And also we have future goals for a Narcan leave behind program or Narcan boxes. So there's a similar program going on in Door County right now where they're actually partnering with their tavern league for taverns and bars that want to participate, where they actually put Narcan boxes in the bars so community members can help themselves essentially. And then I believe they have theirs set up on like a Wi-Fi notification system. So then it just notifies their public health when they need to be refilled. So we do have some fairly lofty goals for it, but I believe they are definitely achievable with that program. Another thing that we will be receiving is through the communicable disease program at the state, we will be receiving some Fight the Bite. So tick removal kits that once we finally get them, they were ordered a couple of weeks ago. We're just waiting for postage and delivery. We will be distributing those to schools and the Spark program for summer activities in summer school because the wood ticks have been absolutely insane. As far as COVID, our last vaccination clinic, we actually successfully held the entire clinic outside thanks to finally having some warmer weather. We had roughly 30 people attend for booster vaccines. The next age group that is up for vaccine consideration will be the 6-month to 4-year-olds. The review for that for emergency use authorization was actually set for today. I have not seen any updates as to if that went through or not. But then it would go to the ACIP for review and recommendation, and then DHS would have to adopt for orders. So we're waiting to see on that. If and when it is approved for the little kids to receive the vaccine, we are actually planning on referring to primary care providers rather than administering those vaccines in our clinic, just because the primary care provider offices are better suited for that specific age group rather than our clinic, where we don't really have a necessarily comfortable environment for itty bitty kids to be receiving their vaccines. So and then our next clinic is scheduled for the 28th, and that will actually be held on Madeline Island. We were able to confirm that date today. Our current vaccination rate, we are at a roughly 72% of the county have received at least one dose of vaccine. 68.4% are considered fully vaccinated, so they've received the 2 primary dose series. And then it's 39.6% are fully vaccinated with a booster. So our numbers are slowly continuing to climb up. And we have been seeing some increased case activity again. We had been averaging roughly 30 cases for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then last week we were noted with a spike in case activity. We actually had 55 newly reported cases last week. So our community level is still reported as a medium level. We haven't been seeing a lot of hospitalizations with this spike in activity, thankfully. So that is keeping us at the medium level. The actual community transmission rate is high, and that's based on the positivity rate. That's been high for quite some time, and the entire state is in the red as far as that. And we anticipate that to remain high for a while. We're hoping that case activity trends back down as it did last summer, but time will tell. So we'll wait and see on that. Any questions?
Okay, now we'll move on to Val and her report.
So this is our quality assurance report for 2021 for the Community Support Program, or often referred to as CSP. And the most significant thing that happened in 2021 is all of our hard work in working with people to teach them the supports to be able, with their illnesses, to be able to live a life independently, or at least move to a less restrictive service, has paid off. We had 7 participants in the program last year, and 5 of them were actually discharged because of moderate improvement or being able to move into the CCS program, which is a less intensive service. So that's the biggest thing. The other thing that I noticed is that the consumers became more comfortable seeking medical attention, going to regular appointments, going to dental appointments. So that was great because there was very low participation in those types of activities the year before. And then I think one of the things with our intensive skill building is we have had a significant decrease in hospitalizations in 2021, psychiatric hospitalizations. So, and the last thing I just want to mention is that last year, 100% of our consumers said they were living the majority of the year in a place of their choosing. That's never happened in my 24 years of working with psychosocial rehab. That again, that shows with the lower rate of hospitalizations, there's a lower rate of group homes, or people were in step-down group homes in which they felt very comfortable in. So that was quite significant. So those are the highlights.
I want to make sure I heard that correctly. You said 100% of the people said that they felt they were in safe, adequate housing?
They were in the housing of their choosing.
Okay.
So that means they weren't living someplace they didn't want to be. In the CSP program, a lot of times people are under commitment and are hospitalized or in significant group homes that limit their activities.
Oh, that's pretty significant. Thank you.
Any other questions for Val? Jerry, you touched on youth justice referrals in your report. Did you have anything more, or was that your?
Actually, I kind of got on a roll and got ahead of myself. But I do have a couple other things I could throw out there that I'd just like to add, having to do with some of our accomplishments. Since I wrote the list of accomplishments, there's been some other updates in here that we have filed. So under our accomplishments, it says 5 additional TPR cases ready to file. We have filed on 3 of those. And disposition in those cases will be coming up in July. So I'm very pleased about that. And Emily Sugar has done a tremendous amount of work on these cases to be able to get to this point where the termination of parental rights can take place. The other thing that I just thought I'd bring up, well, I got a couple things. One of which is as of April, so since our last meeting, the state has now taken over payment for subsidized guardianship payments to family members that are providing care for children of other family members. Subsidized guardianship has been a thing now for probably about 15 years, maybe even longer. And that has always been money that has come that the county has paid out. So if we did a subsidized guardianship on a 4-year-old child with their aunt, and then we ended up closing our case, we would continue to pay that subsidized guardianship until that child turned 18. So the nice part about that is now the state has taken over those subsidized guardianship payments. And we are no longer fiscally responsible for the children that we do subsidized guardianships on. So we are pushing to get as many of our cases as we can into subsidized guardianships and get out from under those payments for substitute care. So that's a big plus that we're working on at this point in time. The other thing I just wanted to point out is that for some time now, we have not had in the children's unit a forensic interviewer. And a forensic interviewer is a vital role when it comes to our child abuse and neglect investigations. The forensic interview is specifically trained on appropriate methods to question children so as not to lead them, and to be able to gather information specifically for use in court proceedings, whether that's in a child in need of protection services case, or the interviewer may be called as a witness in a criminal case regarding sexual or physical abuse. We now have a fully trained forensic interviewer in Courtney Kleber. And Courtney has been doing a great job along with the other forensic interviewer in the area is Amy O'Donoghue, who works for the Sheriff's Department. So we are very pleased to have Courtney fully trained as a forensic interviewer for Ashland County Human Services.
Any questions for Jerry? Staffing updates.
All right, I usually would give you a litany of who has come and who has left, but since we didn't have our meeting in April and the meeting is already going long, I'm just going to give you an abbreviated version of some of the more significant changes that we've had. Our April meeting would have been the last meeting you would have shared with Laura Compton, who was our adult services supervisor. She has moved on and is now a regional quality specialist for our region for the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So it's a huge promotion for her. Salary increase, great benefits. So we're very happy for her. She is not the first person that we have lost to the state. She's our third supervisor since I've been the director here. And my guess is probably will not be the last. We have very talented people. They are not compensated enough for the duties that they do. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know there is a wage study coming. I don't need the wage study to tell you comparatively to other counties, we are way underpaid in all of our units. Good news is Natasha McFadden, who you've already heard from, is the new ADRC branch manager and the adult services supervisor for our county. She is also the regional coordinator for the ADRC of the North. So she wears many hats. We did not have many candidates for that position. And Natasha was an internal candidate who came fully qualified, and we are very lucky that she was willing to step up. It is a very difficult position. But just to give you kind of a snapshot in time, there were no people scrambling for these jobs. We also had the mental health professional position at CCS available for a very long time, and we were not able to fill that. Val and Terry have kind of taken on those duties without additional pay, which I don't believe is fair either. I have addressed that with Dan, and it's stalled out. I don't believe taking on another full position is right without having some kind of compensation for that. And again, this is the CCS program, which is 98, 99% fully funded. And I just don't believe that's right. We are, however, because of the wonderful staff that we have who are willing to step up and take on those extra duties, we are currently fully staffed. Knock on wood. I don't want to jinx anything. But it's going to be an ongoing issue, and there needs to be competitive pay for the jobs that we do, or we're going to continue to be feeders for the state of Wisconsin and our neighboring counties. So I just want to plant that seed. We never seem to be able to get on an agenda for an agenda item for wage increases. Other people do. I understand, some of the things we do are not glorified. We go into dirty homes. We have to at times remove children. We help mentally ill, sometimes whether they want it or not. So, we aren't the agency that gets a lot of glory, but the workers do valuable duties and help the community in many ways. So I'm hoping when this comes up for the full board or your executive or finance committees, if you're on them, that you take this into consideration, because morale is not good. I mean, you heard from Kelly earlier, morale is not good when you hear certain people being compensated for things and other people not even being able to get on the agenda. So that's my litany. Thank you.
2022 year-to-date expenditures.
Okay, this is the same exhibit as the full year 2021. just at the top of this one, it says 2022 year-to-date April. ACH HSD revenue expense and analysis, revenue and expense analysis. At this point in the year, we've been over this, those of you, Matt and Clarence and Dr. Keller, and all of you have been around for a while. Laura, we talk about this every year at this time. The dollars that are spent at the beginning of the year are all grant dollars. So what you see here early on is, so for example, right now, where this represents 1/3 of a year, our levy spending is at 11% of the full year. And that's normal, and that's how it operates. It's not a straight line, spend of levy dollars. And there's not a whole bunch to look at or analyze quite yet here. I don't see anything of any concern. One of the things I have noticed is so far it's been just in one part of our placements. It's been kind of a tough year for state mental health hospitals for us already. We have spent through April. Now here again, state mental health hospitals, Mendota, Winnebago. I think there are a couple others, but those are the biggies. Year to date through April, and these are court ordered. This is not something that the county gets to choose whether it happens or not. The county doesn't get to choose to step down, send them to a less restrictive environment on our own. Children's, we spent $85,000 through April. In the adult unit, we have spent about $80,000 through April. The good news is that for the children, kids who are in that situation are, if they're eligible for Medicaid, Medicaid will pay for that. So the good news is for Jerry, of that $85,000, $45,000 of it is funded by MA. Otherwise, there aren't any funding sources for these sorts of stays, these court-ordered stays in state mental health hospitals. On the adult side, so far, we've been kind of lucky also. Of that 80,000, I mean, it basically has been all covered by Medicaid. I'm sorry, Medicare. So the person, one of the people who was in the hospital is a Medicare beneficiary. Anyone between 18 and 65, whether they have Medicaid or not, Medicaid will not pay for this kind of a stay. So we obviously don't want anybody to be in this situation, but you know, if they are, from a purely financial perspective, it's certainly helpful to the county if they have, as an adult, if they're of Medicare age. So been a rough year on the expense side there so far, but fortunately for us so far, we've had a lot of offsetting revenue, which is nothing that you can really count on. So, but other than that, I don't, you know, as I look through this, again, it's always the out-of-home placements. I mean, what do we do? It's good to hear Jerry talk about the idea that, you know, the subsidized guardianships where the state's gonna pay that freight now. So for kids who may be in foster homes, maybe there's an opportunity where we can get them with relatives or whatever. But that's been the struggle for years, and it continues to be the struggle. So anybody have questions about any of that?
George?
Yep.
In your revenue sections, what does MA stand for?
I'm sorry, MA stands for Medicaid.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Pete? Narcan use policy.
So Liz has already kind of laid the groundwork for the use of Narcan. It certainly came timely. We didn't know that she would find out 2 days ago that we were accepted into this, and she spent most of yesterday and today preparing and training so that our staff can be trained to provide Narcan if needed. We have not had a Narcan policy before. We feel with the amount of overdoses that we've had and fatal overdoses that we've had, that there's a huge need for it. I don't think even myself, who's in the loop, hears about all the overdoses. If somebody is overdosing in the community and they are revived, we don't hear about them. We don't get a referral to reach out to them and say, hey, can we help you? We've got programs that can help you. It's just they're recovered and they're left to be on their own. The only time we might is when they end up in the hospital and something did not go well, and then we could get a referral that way. Many of our programs, our children's unit, our community service providers, public health, many of our programs work with people who are using different illicit drugs, and fentanyl is being included in what looks, everything from marijuana to heroin to what you think is a prescription pill can be pure fentanyl, and it can kill you. Just one pill can kill you. So we want to be able to be as proactive as we can. So this Narcan policy, it's pretty straightforward. Training will be done by Liz. We plan to actually do that tomorrow at an all-staff meeting that we already had set up, so that any staff who want to be able to have Narcan for either their family and friends or their clients can have that and feel that they can be of help if somebody around them overdoses. There is a Good Samaritan law that covers anybody. And basically Liz has said, even if you gave it to somebody and they weren't overdosing, they're not going to have an adverse reaction. So it's just, all it does is knock these opiate receptors, knocks the opioids off the receptors and brings them into immediate withdrawal and saves them from dying. So anybody have any questions or concerns? We are asking for approval of this policy.
And we'll need a motion to approve the policy.
George Busse moves to approve the policy.
Laura Cruz,
Huber, I'll
second.
Okay, motion by George, seconded by Rich to approve the Narcan use policy. Any other questions, Matt?
Yeah, my question is this going to be a mandatory thing or is it going to be a voluntary thing? And
It would all be voluntary.
all right. And as far as the storage requirements, how do you deal with that as far as making sure that what you're, because unless it's changed, its temperature.
It's stored at room temperature. It just typically needs to avoid heat extremes. So, people wouldn't be able to leave it in their vehicles overnight, that sort of thing. It would just, you could carry it in, I'm just going to use purse as an example, just make sure you bring it in your vehicle, keep it in your office, whatever it would happen to be, and just avoid extreme temperatures.
Yeah, I know it's not supposed to freeze either. That's why I'm wondering,
Right.
should that be addressed in the policy if we're going to be giving this stuff away that, well, I don't mean giving away, but if we're going to have them carrying it,
It'll be part of the training that they sign off on.
okay. I guess I understand that's part of the training, but I think it should be clearly spelled out, as far as responsibilities and stuff if we're going to have a policy. I guess I'd go on to say if we don't have a policy and they're covered under Good Samaritan Act, why have the policy?
Because our staff are not comfortable administering it to clients without this policy.
Rich?
And we want to be able to provide it to our staff and have it readily available. Anybody can get it. We'll be providing it through our Narcan Direct. Anybody can get it. This is just a means of promoting the staff that are working with clients who use, to be able to feel empowered to give Narcan if it is needed.
This Narcan, it must come in a little kit or something that has instructions, right? Or is it just,
Yep, in the package that it comes in a little box, and there's 2 doses per box. So we'll be actually administering, or we'll have the nasal Narcan available to us. So it's basically, it's just like you would be administering like your Afrin nasal spray or whatever, normal saline nasal spray, where it's just a squirt into the nostril. It is very safe. It has no side effects for someone. So if you were to, happen upon somebody who's unresponsive and you think possibly it's an overdose, so you call 911 and administer Narcan, and it's not an overdose, the Narcan will have no effect on them whatsoever. It's safe for children. It's safe for pregnant or breastfeeding women. It is safe to use on your pets. If you are someone who inadvertently drops your prescription medications on the floor and your dog eats it, thinking it's a
Okay.
treat, you can actually administer it to your dog.
okay, that sounds simple enough, I guess.
Matt, I was just looking on here, and in the 3rd paragraph, it does refer to it must be stored properly.
I just saw that as well. It goes on to say adequate.
Yeah, the Human Health and Human Services Department will verify that it is adequate and current.
Mhm.
But and if there's training to store it properly, I mean, I think that's incorporated in the policy then.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. Just basically puts the responsibility on you as the department to make sure that's adequate. So
And to train the people in proper storage. Yeah.
Yep,
And
the
staff
training, the training goes over the storage requirements. There's also information in the training regarding before you administer, if you can, look at the packaging, make sure your packaging isn't damaged. There's instructions on the outside of the packaging, and then each one of the doses, as you go to open up the individual dose, there's written and illustrated instructions on the packaging, the individual doses as well, with the storage requirements. And then information that if it's, damaged, or if it appears to be cloudy or discolored, that it's probably had some sort of damage, and to not use it to, get a different dose.
Any other questions?
This is Laura Nagro. Not really a question, a comment. There is another side effect to this. When our public health people are going out and seeing people, they might save a life. And sometimes that's the best thing we can shoot for during this whole issue. And this policy does seem to cover what it needs to cover. And I am comfortable with what's written. I applaud the forward thinking of the department in this area.
Anything else? Otherwise, all in favor of approving the Narcan use policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries. Written materials. Any comments, questions about written materials?
Just to point out, the ADRC also received a letter from the governor for the work that they have done during COVID. That's included. Otherwise, it's the same materials you generally get every meeting.
We'll move on to board member updates and agenda items. Any one have any suggestions for an item on the agenda? Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to revisit the needle exchange program and hear what's going on with it, and, what, if anything, we can derive from, the years that we've had it now.
The county doesn't have it Philomena Quebec that the Bad River Tribe is in charge of that, but that's separate from Health and Human Services.
We voted some time ago for a needle exchange. What was that all about?
It might have been at the full county board, but it wasn't Health and Human Services.
Okay, so we have no program.
No.
Okay. But Bad River does, is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they the only one in the county then that does? Do you know?
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments by board members or others?
I do have one thing. As we hold these meetings and they're also online and available for the public, it would be nice when there's speakers, especially from the county board or the committees or the departments as they're doing their reports, to have somebody actually sitting there and changing cameras so we can see the wonderful, lovely faces of the people that are doing all this hard work.
There were some issues with the cameras today, I guess. Dan said at the beginning of the meeting, he didn't know if they would even function or not.
Okay. He just said technical difficulties, so that could be anything. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Any other questions, comments? Any other business? Matt?
I'd like to move that we come out of recess, go back into a public hearing for the purpose of closing the public hearing.
This is Huber. I'll second that.
All right. I guess we got to do a roll call again.
George Bousset. Clarence Campbell.
Aye.
Richard Huber.
Yes.
Matt McKenzie. Laura Negro.
Yes.
Dr. Horning.
Yes.
Dr. Keller. Laura Cruz.
Did she leave?
I think so.
Yeah,
Right,
she
then we
dropped
need-
off.
Okay, then we need a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Huber. Also moved that we close the public hearing.
George Busse, I'll second.
George Bousset.
We'll now vote.
Clarence Campbell.
Yes.
Richard Huber.
Yes.
Matt McKenzie.
Yes.
Laura Negro.
Yes.
Dr. Horning.
Yes.
Dr. Keller. Laura Cruz.
Motion carries. Next meeting date is September 21st. And seeing as we have,
Move
Pretty
to
big-
adjourn. Move to adjourn.
motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
I-
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.